Welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited about talking to Steph. Dr. Steph is a former NASA psychologist turned healing coach. And she says she is a healing coach for daughters of narcissistic women. She guides them on how to break free of anxiety, perfectionism, people pleasing, and the annoying good girl syndrome so that they can feel calm and at ease and present and capable. So I'm so excited. Listen in. Good morning, everyone. I am so pleased to introduce our guest today. Dr. Steph is a healing coach, and she has such an interesting story. This conversation may take some twists and turns, but you guys know that's pretty much always what happens. So welcome, Dr. Steph.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on today.
I am too. I would love for you. So we've been having like a little conversation before we started recording, and I would love for you to tell everyone your story, how this became your focus for your practice.
Yes. I'm a former NASA psychologist. I worked there for 8 years. So most of the time when people hear that, they're like, wait a second, how did you get from there to here? And a portion of what I was doing at NASA has a large overlap, which tends to confuse people. And so I'll bring you up to speed really quick. I was an organizational development consultant and I did a lot of leadership coaching. And when doing leadership coaching, it was almost always about the leader and their self-awareness and their self-accountability and their self-acceptance and how they could overcome fear and have hard conversations and all of this. And so there was some healing that needed to be done in order for them to really step into that leadership role. And I realized that while I was there, I was like, this is what I love the most. This is what I want to do all the time. And I also had this moment in my first year at NASA where I went to this workshop, this 5-day workshop that completely changed the trajectory of my entire life. Walking in, I had these moments several times a year where I actually felt broken. On the outside, I looked like I had it all together. Everybody was like, oh yeah, what did you get raised in, like by Martha Stewart? Literally, I got comments like that. And on the inside, I was dealing with anxiety. I had high functioning anxiety. So I was still like doing the things, but I felt like a wreck on the inside. And I also had this pattern of having emotional breakdowns, like reoccurring emotional breakdowns. All these things together, loving, helping leaders really step into their role, recognizing what I was struggling with previously, like years before that, and then had these aha moments and big shifts in my life. I'm like, I want to help people that felt like I did. I don't want anybody to feel like they're broken and to be struggling with anxiety and perfectionism when they don't have to.
I love that so much because I think that as you were talking, I was thinking that a lot of us just accept the emotional turmoil and those different things as our normal, and maybe thinking I can't ever have freedom for that. That's just who I am. And that's how I function. And
Yes.
like you said, because on the outside you were functioning well and you have your life together and things are going well, it becomes harder to deal with those things because it's working for you. So you said you went to this workshop and you realized like that would be that you really are passionate about that healing part, the healing, the inner trauma. So what do you do now?
Yeah. So now I work with clients who struggle with high functioning anxiety. Many of them have basically all of them have one of three things happening for them. They were raised by an emotionally immature parent or a narcissistic parent, or maybe one that struggled with substance abuse or something like that. And so there's a lot of trauma that they've been through and a lot of healing necessary today. And so the work that I do with them is to guide them through that so that they're not dealing with that anymore. Not that we're not going to have hard things come up, but what shocked me through my healing journey is hard stuff can happen and I can remain grounded That's possible for me because I didn't think that was. I was like, no, I'm just a worrier. That's who I am. Like, I'm just an anxious person. That's my default. And I was wrong. And so now I'm like screaming from the rooftops, no, and that's not true. Even if you feel like you've always been anxious, for instance, there was a time, just consider, there was a time that you weren't. Here's a quick metaphor. Do you ever remember learning what a chair was? No, but there was a time that you didn't know what a chair was. And so it's very possible that what I'm suggesting could be true for you as well.
I love that so much. So my husband is all about mindset, and I focus a lot on mindset inside my birth courses and inside my mama membership, because a part of that transition into motherhood, you really have to work on your mindset and that inner healing. We hired a life coach who comes in to help my members break generational cycles and deal with trauma. Yeah. And it's been really incredible to see and experience with them. But one of the things that has been so powerful for me is such a simple trick. I don't know. I saw it. I think it was Mel Robbins, I think said. And it's counting backwards to 5 or another. So for those of you guys listening, if it's something you're having to do, or maybe you don't want to do, or you're struggling with anxiety about doing something, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, up. Like you get up and you do it. Yeah. And then the other thing that's been really big for me because my family's gone through a lot the last couple of years, crazy stuff. And my husband was like, I've never struggled with major depression until 2 years ago. Yeah. And I didn't want to get up and function. And his thing was, and I'm going off on a way tangent, but
that's okay.
Everybody knows this.
So curious.
Yeah. So his thing was, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? Yeah. And then I believe it was Mel Robbins. So the next step really helped me. Okay, I don't have to focus on everything that has to get done.
You don't have to figure out A through Z. Just one. Yes. I gave a client that advice this morning. We're like, one thing.
Just so you guys listening know, little Tula, everybody who follows me knows Tula. She is in my office today and being very clingy and whiny. So if you hear her, I'm so sorry. Anyway, the next best thing really helped me. But then I heard someone say, and now I can't remember who, but they said, tell yourself, I am the type of person who. And so when I was really struggling with anxiety and worry about the what ifs and all the things, I would say, okay, I'm the type of person who shows up. Who does the hard thing. And then working on that. So I'd love to hear, in light of that, this is where this whole thing is going. And you said you just told one of your clients that same thing. Do the next best thing is what he always says to me. What are some of those small, quick things that you share with your clients that would help a mom? Because not everybody can afford a healing coach or even therapy. In general. So what are some practical little nuggets that you have?
One simple thing that most people do not realize is that they are using the word anxiety to label a whole slew of emotions. And especially when being raised by an emotionally immature parent, the emotional vocabulary of people is limited. So they're like, happy, sad, but there's just not the spectrum there. And everything is, I'm anxious. And so 2 changes. 1, we're going to change it to part of me feels anxious. And then 2, anytime that you tell yourself you're anxious, pull out an emotion wheel. And if you haven't heard of that before, Google it. There's a ton on the internet. And look for, what else am I feeling? Because anxiety actually tends to be suppressed emotions. So where you are actually not allowing yourself to feel other things. And the important part is when you look at that emotion wheel and, there's something else here, what you do about it could be totally different. For instance, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I might make a completely different choice than if I'm feeling incompetent. But people might label both of those as feeling anxious. So if I'm overwhelmed, what can I do? Lots of things. One, ask for help. Two, take some things off of my to-do list. Look, what am I actually telling myself that I need to do? But what's actually a glass ball that has to happen today? Like glass ball, meaning if I drop it, it's going to break. Like most things, they don't have to happen today. And
I love the glass ball. That's fantastic.
Yes. And now I just intentionally drop the plastic balls because it doesn't really matter. And the old me would have been like building it up and catastrophizing and worst case scenario. And like, no, I have to. And I had this moment one time where I got sick, and it was not too long before I had a presentation that I was going to be doing. And I was so worried about all these things in life and then also prepping for this presentation. And then when I got sick and really couldn't do any of it, I realized that nothing really mattered because everything just got pushed to the right.
Yeah.
Just to the next week. And then it all got done and it was all okay. And even like subtle things like that can make huge shifts.
I love that so much. One of the things that I learned early on when I created the membership, I took a membership course.
Yeah.
And the lady said their urgency is never your emergency.
Yes.
And that was so freeing for my team and I, because we would get caught up in that urgency and feel oh my gosh, we've got to fix this for them. And we set the pattern that we will respond, but in our time. And we didn't let it become our emergency. So I love that so much. But I also, as you were talking, because my children have both been in therapy pretty consistently for the last few years. And I remember her doing that with my son. And it made me think a lot of people don't know how to recognize what emotion they're actually feeling.
They don't.
So even if they had the wheel, it might take them time to figure that out.
It can take practice. And that's where having someone external to you, it does help a lot.
So in that case, you would ask,
spots.
And you would ask like clarifying questions, like to dig deep as to what they're feeling?
Yeah. And usually because I've been doing this so long, I can recognize pretty quickly. And then they're like, yeah, that is what I'm feeling. And then they feel very...
I know my husband will always say to me when I'm like, I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed. And he'll be like, what are you saying to yourself inside there? What is it that's on repeat? Yeah. And I've begun to be better at recognizing, oh, wow. Yeah. And like you said, a lot of those worries that we catastrophize, a lot of times they don't ever come to true. No. And someone said to me years ago in my parenting, I've been a mom for a very long time, and another mom said to me, stop saying what if, say even if. Yeah. And she taught me to flip my what ifs, because a lot of times our what ifs are like, oh yeah, even if that does happen, like I'll handle it.
You're exactly. Yes. Even if it does happen, I can cope. And most people are like, wait a second, but I don't just want to cope. And it's yes, you do. Because when you, without a shadow of a doubt, know in your entire body, in your entire system that you can cope, you fly. Because nothing gets in the way anymore. Because even if that worst case scenario happens, I've got this. And I don't have to resist this and fight this. And I'm speaking from where I was, because I refer to myself as someone who used to fight life. And I don't hear anybody else using that term. They'll say, oh, just surrender. When you're not surrendering, you are fighting life.
I love that so much, because it is hard to be present and it's hard to live when you're living in a state of anxiety and worry and overwhelm and like fretting about everything. That is, it's hard to have peace, and life should be peaceful.
Yes. And it can be. It's so possible. And so one of the things, like just a simple, I like to do deep inner work, but also practical things. I take, because both are important. Practically, take a look at your life and all the things that you were afraid of happening and all the things that you catastrophize. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't know if this is going to work out. Write it all down and then go through each one. What ended up happening? And when I do this myself, when I've had my clients do it, it's 98% of the time it worked out fine or better.
Or better.
So your mind needs that concrete evidence to prove to yourself, it is okay. Everything is okay.
I love that so much. I know you and I were talking beforehand, and my ex-husband was classic, like narcissist,
Yeah.
more than narcissist, but narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember now here I'm a nurse, but I had stopped working full time to build Labor Nurse Mama.
Yeah.
And I really believed in my business. I knew what I was
Yes.
doing was impactful and important.
Yeah.
And I remember I can put myself back in this moment so vividly. The emotions were so strong. And one of his things was making me feel that I could not survive on my own. We had been together since we were babies. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden he was telling me, we had just built our dream home. It was gorgeous and everything I wanted. And I remember him saying, you're not going to be able to have this house, and you're not going to have this, and you're not going to have that.
Yeah.
And I started getting really in my head. And one of my friends was like, what is a house if it's not a home? Who cares? And I accepted that I was willing to, for me and the two, because at the time I only had 2 of my 7 left at home.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was willing for us to live in a 1-bedroom on food stamps, have nothing, but I would not have discord in my home a moment longer. And everything that happened, my business literally exploded the month my divorce was final.
Oh,
And then
I'm so proud of you.
I just look back and like I was so gripped in fear of the unknown because I only knew this life with him.
Right.
And just this feeling of I won't be able to survive. But I did. And like you said, it was even better. Like things
It was even
were
better.
so much better. Yes.
Yes. That is so damaging. I know, but I don't know the details, but I know there were so many things that were damaging. But my birth father used to say those things to my mom. And it just so like on the self-esteem and the self-worth just takes so much of a hit. But I am so freaking proud of you that
Thank you.
took the leap and you left, because people can get stuck for their whole lives.
Oh, I was stuck there for 27 years. Now I look back and I'm like, the thing about it that is so mind-blowing to me is that I don't understand how I believe the things he told me about myself, because my character and my life accomplishments testified otherwise.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I believed him. Like I truly believed who he said I was.
Yeah.
And it took me, it's been 4.5 years, 5 years since I left him. It's taken me every bit of that to pull those weeds out. And every once in a while, something will creep up and be like, wait, where is that coming from? That is not based in truth.
Right.
And having to flip that and be like, no. And it's when you are in narcissistic abuse, it is like the biggest of oak trees with tons of roots going into every area of your mind and your soul.
Yes. Yes.
I really truly believe it's one of the hardest things to break free from.
I agree. Yeah.
But I love what you're doing.
Thank
and I
you.
love that for those of you guys listening. I think part of the problem though is recognizing that maybe your mother was narcissistic or what you experienced was not normal. Because that was the hardest part for me is that when I left him, I did believe all the things he said about me, but he did things that, a wife should not have to deal with. And that was the breaking straw. It wasn't the narcissistic abuse. That took me time and away from him to realize it was abuse. And I think that is one of the things I see as a huge challenge is that these women that you work with, not the women you work with, the women you need to work with, don't even realize from their mother.
Yep.
Because we're taught as a society that our mother knows best. That's the saying.
Right. Yeah. Some signs in case anyone's listening and they haven't considered it or they're like, is she? I'll just go over a few. There's quite a few. But one is self-centered. So talking about herself constantly. Conversations are not actually conversations. They're one-sided. It's basically I'm being talked at, trying to top your feelings with her own, lacking empathy for your feelings at all as well. If you've ever gone to Hallmark, tried to buy a card for your mom and you're like, this is just lies. And you can't, that could be a sign. Overly cautious about what other people think. So very image focused, and the experience inside the home is very different than outside the home. If she shows up, and this could be like past, because maybe you have some separation from your mom now, or current, if she shows up with a lot of jealousy and is highly critical of you, acting like the world revolves around her, we can keep going. But I think this gives some clarity and some signs. Yeah.
And as you're talking, I think as a mother, sometimes we struggle with some of those things on occasion. When
there's a continuum.
Because I know that when I was in the height of my abuse, it was very hard for me to be present for anyone in my life. But so I think those are really clear.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for any of you guys listening, I really would say that being raised by a narcissistic mother, you would need to work on those things and heal those things, because if that was taught to you as normalcy, you might carry that into your parenting journey.
This is on a continuum where we have some narcissistic traits all the way to full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. And all of us have some. Yeah. And so just like you said, and a couple other things that are important is also not taking responsibility for their actions and their behavior. I'm brushing things under the rugs. Or the rug is really common as well, appearing phony. But if you are raised by a narcissist or an emotionally immature parent, we'll just focus on narcissists right now, the likelihood that you have carried on at least some of that is high. So for me, some of the things that were really common were heavy defense mechanisms. And I had a lot of insecurities. And whenever those insecurities were triggered, I was getting defensive constantly. And I would walk away from situations feeling so confused why I was so upset. That's exactly what was modeled to me in the home. And that has been part of my healing journey, is drastically reducing that defensiveness and healing those insecurities so that I can show up as who I am, which the old me, I'm going to share this just in case that somebody can relate. Let me give an example. When I was going for my interview at NASA, I was waiting because they had a few interviews that day, and I was waiting outside the door. And I told the women who were standing there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. And they were like, just be yourself. And I didn't say this to them, but the immediate thing that happened for me is I can't be myself because I thought the bad parts of me were who I was. That's what I believed. And all of those not so shiny parts and quote unquote bad parts and things that I felt shame around, those were defense mechanisms, not my personality. And I noticed that my clients are making this exact mistake. They think that's who they are, and it's not, which means you can change all of that.
I love that so much. And I think even a step further, having lived with narcissism in such an intimate way, is that the good things, the strong things about you are so warped, and you're told that it's bad and it's labeled as certain. So then you think those strong things are bad things. And so it really is a healing journey, like you said, to realize, wait, I did that because I was in a state of defense all the time. And that actually is a really good character over here. This is a good thing about me. I know for myself, anytime I set up boundaries, then I was accused of being selfish.
Yes. Yes, I should have said that one.
And so I was really confused as to what, just to put that in perspective, I remember when I first left him. And I was taking a boundaries class, and I remember saying now this cracks me up, but I remember saying to my therapist, is it wrong for me to tell the kids they can't come in for 2 hours while I watch a movie by myself? I truly believed that was unacceptable behavior because that was
there are
selfish.
no boundaries with
Yeah.
narcissists. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And anytime you put up a boundary, then
You're selfish.
you're selfish. If
Yes.
even if you say, this is mine, I don't want to share it, or this is my time, I want to be alone. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah.
Lots of therapy. I love
Proud
that.
of you.
Tell me just a little bit. I forgot to tell you when we started, I usually try to keep these under 30 to 40 minutes because mamas are busy and they drop off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you also, and I want to talk about this, you also mentioned surrogacy. So tell me that.
Yes. Okay. I have had the desire to be a surrogate since I first got pregnant. I had a friend who struggled with infertility for 6 years and another friend for 8 years, multiple miscarriages, and it was just on my heart. And fast forward to October 2021, and that's the first time that I brought it up to my husband. I was like, I want to be a surrogate. And he was like, no. He was not on board. And the number of people that I had offered to be a surrogate, I just brushed his no to the side. And I was like, I think it's meant to be. So I just, like, anytime anybody was talking about that, I was like, I'll be your surrogate. And I offered my client, one of my clients in January, she got on a call. It was a group call, but she got on a little bit earlier just to catch up from Christmas. And I started working with an agency and I'm interviewing a surrogate, and it flew out of my mouth, Trish. I was just like, I'll be your surrogate. And she said yes. So she thought I was joking. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if I'm pregnant yet. Last week we did the embryo transfer. So that was beginning of January. And now we're recording this June 10th. And on Friday, I will know, which is 4 days from now. I'm dying.
Do you follow Sam Matthews? We Are Dan and Sam.
I love her.
Yeah, she was on the podcast and she took my birth class for her first surrogate baby. And she has now, so she's one of our referrers. She refers people to the birth classes.
Yes.
But I love her so much.
She's so cute.
And I am so happy about this journey she's having now because I know it's everything she wanted, just to have a relationship. And I just love that so much. Like, what a gift.
Yes.
You are amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I really hope that this embryo sticks and develops into a healthy pregnancy. I can't wait to find out for sure.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible. I love that so much.
you.
We've had quite a few surrogate moms in our community, and it's such a I wish I was pregnant a lot, so I wouldn't have had time to do it probably because I was pregnant so often. But it's definitely something I would have done because I love being pregnant, and I'm such a weirdo. I love giving birth.
I love it too.
I try to teach. This is what I tell to people. You can actually love your birth experience. You can love labor. It really is all about mindset.
Yes.
It really is. And on average, it's really funny. On average, my students who take the birth class, but also we do weekly pregnancy hangouts with me and my doulas. And then we have something called our labor bat signal, which is a group. It's an add-on that they can add on for $49, which is insane. Yes. And they get a group text with me and 2 doulas from 36 weeks to 8 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
The reason I'm saying that is because we're able to work on their mindset intimately and help them navigate so they're not making fear-based decisions and understanding what's being said. And on average, my students get to the hospital at 7 to 8 centimeters.
Wow.
Is that not incredible? And it's not like a lot of people listening that aren't my student are probably thinking, 7 to 8 centimeters are probably freaking out and pulling their hair and screaming.
But they're not.
Most of the time they get there and they're like, wait, what? They hear me say that most of my students do that. But then when it's them, they can't believe. It's not like they think they're 7 to 8. They think they're even thinking, gosh, should I have come? Am I really? Is it time? And they're 7 to 8 centimeters. Yeah. Which tells...
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's mindset. It really is. I tell people this all the time. Like, you can actually love your birth.
Yes, I totally agree. I do unmedicated deliveries and feel very calm during labor and delivery. And I want everybody to know that's possible.
Yeah, and I'm not
Yes.
saying that all of you guys need to go unmedicated. I went unmedicated with all of mine as well. But you can have that still and labor at home and have a beautiful laboring experience, even if your plan is an epidural. But you get to the hospital at 7 to 8 centimeters, especially with your first, you've got plenty of time to get an epidural.
Yeah.
If that's what you choose. But I love unmedicated birth as well.
Me too. Yeah.
My ex-mother-in-law who's passed away years and years ago, but she was like, you're the only weirdo I know who every time you're at a birth, which was a lot, you're like, oh, let's have another baby. Because it's so beautiful and amazing, and I love it. And I had some hard births. Don't get me wrong. My daughter Lainey was face up, straight OP. It was hell, but I still loved it.
Yeah.
But so I love that. And I can't wait to hear the news.
Thank you.
I also, so we can all follow the updates. Can you tell everyone where they can find you if they're interested in diving deeper with you? And also to follow your content on Instagram, because I'm sure you do some education on there as well.
Yep. Best place to find me is on Instagram. My handle is Dr. Stephanie Lopez, Dr. Stephanie Lopez. And I have a podcast. The name is the Broken Knit Brave podcast with Dr. Steph. And I do updates all the time in my stories about surrogacy, and then somewhat on my feed, and then occasionally on the podcast.
Oh, I love it so much. What a blessing.
Thank you.
I don't believe in coincidences. I tell people this all the time. I don't believe in coincidence. Yeah. And what an amazing experience that she showed up early, that she shared that with you.
Yeah. Yes.
And you already had that
Trish,
desire in your heart.
It gets even better. And I know we're at time, but
no, that's okay. I want to hear
right now. Okay. So maybe there's a lot of things that I know it was not a coincidence, but one really powerful one was the month that I decided to tell my husband that I wanted to do that. October 2021 is the month that they called their families, the intended mom and dad, and told them that they were going to pursue surrogacy. And this might sound really weird to some people, and that's okay. But I'm like, I think that little baby soul has been following me since then, because I have had this like urge and desire. And the fact that it was the same month, same year, I'm like, that's the universe. That is not a coincidence.
So I am a believer, and I believe in God. So when I say this story, I believe it was a God thing. But I have a daughter who's adopted from India. Yeah. And in March of 1999, it was March 1st of 1999, I had this overwhelming, I was actually breastfeeding my 1-year-old, and I had this overwhelming, I want to adopt. Like, I want to adopt. And I was young. Okay. I had all 4 boys by the time I was 25, just to put that in perspective. Yeah. So I was 26 maybe at the time, or 25 even. I don't remember. I was young. And I had this overwhelming desire. It was March of 1999. I believe that's right. Yes. It's been a while. I need to look at my notes. But I ended up being like, this is before the internet is what the internet is now. And so I went online and I filled out a couple forms, and I started getting information after information from all these different places. And in my mind, I had 4 little boys with blonde hair, blue eyes, and I live in the South. And I was like, I'm going to adopt from Russia. That way she won't feel different or any of that. I knew I was going to do a girl because I had 4 boys. And so I started filling out all this information. I kept getting all these magazines and stuff, and on them, I'm seeing these dark-haired, dark-skinned girls, and my heart just kept, I can't even explain it. So then I was really like, okay, which agency? Because there were so many, and I prayed about it, and I was led to this one. And so I called them, and on my interview with them, it was with another parent. They had parents call people who were interested, so you could talk to them and talk about their experience or whatever. So the lady that called me, her name was Shauna, and we're talking, and she said, have you decided on a country? And I said, the weirdest thing is that I had decided on Russia, but I just keep feeling this tug to India. And she said, oh my goodness, sit down. And she goes, at this point, it had been a year. She goes, last March.
When you decided?
she went to India for this agency to try to get them approved for adoptions out of India.
Yeah.
They got approved the same time that I felt this call to adopt.
I'm getting teary-eyed.
Fast forward, my daughter was born March of 2000. And she came home. Which is a long story. My son keeps saying, you have to do a podcast on this. I was in India getting her during September 11th and got stuck there. So that was a whole nother thing.
My gosh.
But that being said, it all was happening at the same time across the world. And I always say that my daughter was born in another country, but born to me. We were meant to be. So I think that's
beautiful.
That's incredible. And make sure you're journaling that, because I'm probably saying things wrong right now. That's why she's 23 or 24
everything.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have it all written down because one day you'll be fuzzy. But thank you so much for coming. Can you tell me what are your offerings, or what is it that you offer to women who are looking for healing?
Yes, I have a group program, and it's 6 months long that you get all the healing that you need. It comes with a 2-day in-person retreat, which expedites the progress. Mm-hmm. And then I also offer a separate 5-day in-person retreat, which after people come, they're like, oh my God, I learned more than in 10 years of therapy. And I'm like, yes. This is why I do what I do, because I want to save people time like that. Yeah. I don't want you to be in therapy for a decade when we can really expedite your healing.
The problem with therapy, and I don't know if you've seen Jonah Hill's, his Dr. Stutz or whatever it is. Have you seen this?
No.
So he has a documentary that he made with his therapist, and his therapist is completely out of the box. But he says in there that you go to your therapist wanting them to tell you what to do, and they don't. And then you go to your friends wanting them to listen, and they tell you what to do. You're like your dumb friends. And it's so true
and they don't
with
know.
therapy. Yeah, and they don't know. And it's so true with therapy. Sometimes you just want someone to give you practical steps on how to handle it and not just listen.
Yes. That's what I do, give practical steps. Yeah. I bring in 3 pillars. That's everything that they need that I used and now all of my clients have used to heal.
So do they need to be a part of your community for the 5-day or the 3-day, or is that...
They can come to those separately. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
I so appreciate it. All right, you guys, have a wonderful day. Wow, what a powerful episode. I hope you guys learned something so valuable. Please hit subscribe, leave a review. It means so very much to me. And as always, I will see you again next Friday. Bye for now.